And a little sad news, Ray Perkins passed away, the former New York Giant coach. Now, I was going back and looking at all the things that he had done. He never had a winning season as a coach, but he did lay the foundation for the Giants. When you think about, he hired Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, and Romeo Crennel on that staff, and then when he decided to go back to Alabama and coach and become the athletic director at his alma mater, that's when George Young turned to Bill Parcells and said, "You're going to be the head coach." And, and then you go back and you look at Bill Parcells' career and you kind of like try to figure out, man, he coached everywhere.
Sure.
I mean, everywhere. Everywhere from Hastings to Army to Air Force and everywhere in between. Is Vanderbilt.
I feel like we talk
about it.
I feel like we talk about Parcells every day now in relation to the Giants and the Jets. He's just one of those guys that's always going to be.
He's a mercenary.
But he's also always going to be around, because what he meant to both organizations, he's always going to be a reference point.
Well, plus he's a Jersey guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The other aspect too, to realize how all this stuff kind of manifests itself and what it all turns into and the legacy all these guys leave, So Perkins, went to Alabama, had a little bit of a good run, then ended up leaving there and going to Tampa Bay, and then had a bad run. And then after Tampa Bay, I believe that Sam Weiss took over for him there. I think that's what happened. But it's just amazing how all these people are tied together. And so Ray Perkins dies at the age of, I believe he's 79, and Bill Parcells is 79. It's like the same age and the same time. And Bill Parcells actually, as I was reading about this, and I forgot all about this, he went to go work for a land development company in Colorado, and he bought season tickets to the Broncos. And this was right around the time the Giants, he said it was the worst day the worst year of his life, and then decided to go work for the Patriots as a linebacker coach. And then Perkins finally said, "Hey, why don't you come work for us as the defense coordinator?"
What a life lesson, huh? When things are going bad, Boomer, you never know when that opportunity is going to float your way.
It's fascinating when you look back on the history of all this stuff, and especially the New York Giants, and quite frankly, maybe the Giants have their next Bill Parcells. Who knows? You talk about young guys that were, taking over a franchise that hadn't been very good, and quite frankly, when they Ray Perkins, I think, was the guy that drafted Lawrence Taylor and had him his first year, his rookie year. And then all of a sudden, between Belichick and Romeo Crennel, who was a special teams coach, by the way, and Belichick was a linebackers coach, maybe I'm doing a little revisionist history. I'm not really sure, but I just think about how all that stuff unfolded, in the early 80s and how Perkins decided to leave to go to Alabama. And maybe he was going to get fired anyway because he wasn't doing well, but he assembled a hell of a coaching staff.
It is sort of funny to think about how the Giants may have their next version of Bill Parcells, where Joe Judge is in his career now. And then the Jets are also looking for their version of Bill Parcells later in his career in the late 90s, and who that guy is going to be to bring them the credibility. Because Bill Parcells obviously was a different person when he took over the Giants than he was when he took over the Jets. So it's just those parallels that are going on with the organizations right now, and that name who brought success to both places. Obviously not a Super Bowl championship to the Jets, but still he brought them back to credibility in a championship game. That was a huge deal at the time after what they went through, as we know. It's just the organization's sort of where they are in their history right now. They both needed another Bill Parcells.
Well, remember, Bill Parcells also went back and coached the Cowboys because Jerry Jones needed, a dose of credibility and reality, and he was the one that found Tony Romo, for that matter. And then when you think about going to the Miami Dolphins in their front office, again, it's a credibility hire, and it just kind of makes you wonder, what the Jets are going to do. Do they need a credibility hire now more than ever before, or is Joe Judge a big enough influence and I get just a big enough person to be the guy in the building? Yeah, does he want to be the guy in the building? I'm assuming that he does, but I don't know that for a fact. But George Young was a taskmaster, a GM, a guy that brought the organization together, a guy that was put in there, much like Sandy Alderson was put in for the Mets a few years back to get the team right. So now the question for the Jets is, how do we get the team right? What are we going to do? And I know if they end up with the number one pick, Trevor Lawrence would be the guy that will get the fan base back. The question is, who is the coach that now also comes along with him that is going to be able to ignite the sales and the sponsorships and the excitement again around the Jets?
And one of the things that you talked about specifically being a big problem as to why the Jets are where they are is the fact that Mike Maccagnan stayed and Adam Gase came in and they couldn't work together. Now, this is the only reason I bring this up now, because we've been over that 10 million times, but how that wasn't great is here we are again with a general manager who's going to stay. There's going to be another head coach that is coming in. We're talking about the credibility stuff and how someone needs to walk into the room and be the man. But that, if you take the names out of it and just speak generically, isn't always great for the remaining GM, because that guy usually has people he wants to be around. That guy has a lot of ideas. Said, hey, look, I've got this on my resume. Joe Douglas just became a general manager by himself with this particular job. So whoever that person is, if the Jets are going to go the credibility, we need someone who has done it before route, like we talked about earlier in the week with Bill Cowher, you better make sure and damn sure that Joe Douglas and that guy are on the same page, so you don't repeat history again like you did where the Mike Maccagnan, Adam Gase thing just completely blew up in everybody's faces.
It's amazing to me when I really think back to all that decision making and how it was put together. I've always sat here and told you, I want a strong GM. I want the GM to be the guy that can walk into that coach's office and ask him questions about why isn't this guy playing, what is going on with this guy, and be the boss of the operation. That's what I want. I've always wanted that. I've always felt like that is the most important thing. And even when I played in Cincinnati, the general manager was the owner, Mike Brown. He and Paul Brown basically ran the team, selected the players, selected the coach, and they would watch film or tape, whatever you want to call it, with the coach on Monday morning and go over everything with everybody. Now, it made the coaches uncomfortable because it was the owner / general manager, and I'm sure that's exactly what Jerry Jones does down in Dallas. But the thing that I would say is that, the Johnson family didn't grow up in football. You could say whatever you want about the following owners: the Rooneys, the Browns, the McCaskies, the Maras, try to think.
The Hunts.
The Hunt family. Even the Arizona Cardinals.
The
Bidwell family. Yeah,
yes.
I mean, these people, this has been their lives. They've been in football, the business of football, since they were kids.
Generations
and generations and generations. So they kind of get the sport. They understand the sport. They've been around the sport. You can't say that about the Johnsons family, especially when Woody decides to become the ambassador of Great Britain, and then he leaves and then leaves it for Christopher, who's never been in this thing before.
Sure.
So it was a messy hiring. It was an arranged marriage that Mike Maccagnan, brought in Greg Williams, and then they decided to go with Adam Gase because Christopher is smitten by him. And, he says, I'll accept, Greg Williams. That's fine. He can handle the defense. I'll handle the quarterback and the offense. You can't have siloed head coaches like that, or coaches like that, like co-head coaches. It doesn't work. So you got to have a strong guy that has a hand at the top of the organization. In this case, it would be Joe Douglas. And then if he wants to make a credibility hire like a Bill Cowher, I'm sure they need to sit down and talk over things to see whether or not they align with how they see football being played, and especially in this new age of football and all that other stuff. Or if it's somebody that he's worked with somewhere else before, whether it be, Wink Martindale, who is the defense coordinator of the Ravens. But the thing is, I don't want Wink Martindale coming in here and calling the defense. I want the next head coach to be
a
like
head
Joe
coach.
Judge.
Yeah. But that's the thing that scares me, though, is when you have Bill. We're throwing hypotheticals out, so I understand I'm reaching here. But just let's talk about this scenario. You mentioned about if Bill Cowher and Joe Douglas sit down and see if they're aligned on football. All right, let's say that Bill Cowher says, hey, sounds like the money's going to be there. Sounds like we got Trevor Lawrence. Now all I have to do is sit down and see if Joe Douglas and I agree on the direction of the organization. And what if they don't? Then what do you do as the owner of the Jets?
Well, then you're
going to let him walk out the door?
Well, that's a whole nother set of circumstances.
But that's what I'm saying. This is why here we are again. The point was Adam Gase failing at the level that he failed as a head coach of the Jets really screwed up their plans. Because once they fired Mike Maccagnan and brought in Joe Douglas, part of the reason why they brought in Joe Douglas was that Adam Gase and Joe Douglas had a previous relationship, and they thought that these two guys would be coasting together the next couple of years. Not coasting, but working together the next couple of years. That's why Adam Gase was so desperate. We had heard stories about him like freaking out when the contract negotiations were going on with Joe Douglas. He wanted to get done so much because he knew the guy. They aligned on football, and he thought that his job would be safe if he was here. And now that's completely blown up.
But you know how I often say, and I have often said over the last, 3 to 6 weeks, that, they basically have screwed up Sam Darnold. And the reason they screwed up Sam Darnold is because of the way that this whole thing went down and how this whole hiring and mismatch of Greg Williams and Adam Gase basically. See, Adam Gase, the way I see it, if there is a stereotypical coach in the NFL, he's one who's, and it's not just Adam, it's all coaches, unless their name is Bill Belichick or John Harbaugh or Andy Reid. Most coaches are going to be really insecure about where their next job is, always looking over their shoulder.
Mike Tomlin's another one.
Right. Always knows the best way of doing things and is going to be very, very steady in his ways. And he's going to, like Joe Judge is trying to do here with the firing of the offensive line coach and dealing with Golden Tate and all that other stuff. So he was so worried about not getting another shot at a job that he took the Jet job under the guise that Greg Williams was going to be his defense coordinator and that Greg was going to handle the defense.
And Mike Maccagnan was going to be the general manager. Let's not forget that too.
I think Christopher Johnson saw the mismatch in personalities between Maccagnan and Gase. I don't think Maccagnan wanted Gase.
Sure, of course not. Why would you? Because you just knew that there was at some point a dagger was going to be in your back sooner than later.
So if it didn't work for Sam Darnold, it certainly wasn't going to work for Adam Gase. You can't expect a coach to be able to coach a team that is fractured like this. And that's why it is important for me, from where I sit, to see that Joe Judge gets the right guy. He knows the NFL. You've hired him to be your general manager.
Joe Douglas.
Joe Douglas. You've hired him to be your general manager. Let him do his job. As Bill Belichick says all the time, just do your job. Just do what you're supposed to do. And let Joe Douglas and all the experience that he has had in 3 different organizations, all the people he knows in the league, let him go through the process. Obviously, the ownership has to be involved in it, depending on how big the check is going to be. But I personally would let him do it and let him be the guy so he hires the right guy so there is some synergy in the building, and then the head coach is able to hire his staff.
Sure, but you kind of threw a monkey wrench into this whole thing on Monday when we talked about Bill Cowher. Because in any normal situation that you're talking about with Joe Douglas and hiring a coach, I'd agree with you because that's the way it needs to be. That's the structure that is going to work. But does Joe Douglas want that type of personality there?
I'm just telling you, first of all, Bill did tell me on Sunday he loves Joe Douglas. Okay, so they probably do see it very similar.
Captain Coward.
And with Mekhi Becton over there at left tackle, man, you got the foundation of something that's going to be pretty special along that offensive line.
So you don't think Joe Douglas is going to be scared off by a Hall of Fame coach walking in, now all of a sudden it's his team?
Because I don't think look, again, I can't speak for all these guys because I don't know all the the particulars and all the their mindset and all that other stuff. I think Coach Cowher or any coach of that ilk would probably want to collaborate with a guy like Joe Douglas. And let's say, how do we see I know how Coach Cowher sees the game.
Sure.
He sees the game offensive line, defensive line, running game.
Okay.
Yep. Those are like
those are Joe
tenets.
Douglas things.
Those are the tenets of football.
Right.
Especially when you play outside in the Northeast. And this time of year, look what you got out there. Now, I can also imagine. Again, I don't want to speak for him, but I could just imagine Coach Cowher watching the Steelers throw the ball 53 times.
It probably drives him nuts.
Come on, man. This is not Steeler football.
Right.
This is not who we are. We've lost our way. We need to throw the ball 40 times and run it an extra 13 times, or we need to throw the ball 35 times and run the ball an extra 18 times, whatever it is. But I just, and that was Parcells' tenets too. You got to run the football, and you have to, and look at, by the way. So after Joe Judge fires his offensive line coach, now all of a sudden we got 7 offensive linemen rotating in and playing, which is great. and all of a sudden they're running the ball effectively. This is the recipe to win.
Yeah, one more question that I know you haven't asked Bill Cowher directly, but it's very interesting to me if you have any sort of knowledge. You're like one of those guys that you see and you read in the articles, a person familiar with Bill Cowher's thinking.
Thinking, yes.
But, all right, Bill Cowher seemed to be interested in, he likes Joe Douglas. His wife is a Jets fan. He loves being in New York. All of these things.
She says we about the Jets.
Right. So all of those things.
Great.
So he would sort of, it seemed like we were alluding to, he'd sort of think about that job. But has he now crossed that line into thinking about other jobs too?
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't think
like
so.
Chicago.
I can't say that.
Like, because couldn't you see him coaching the Bears?
Oh, he would be great on the Bears sideline. I've said that 1,000 times.
Right. So
up there in the scores.
So what if they get rid of Matt Nagy? It's like that.
Because you know why? The Bears won't pay what it would take, I think.
And the Jets will?
It depends. It depends on how far the Jets feel like they've fallen. So when Leon Hess realized that he made a major mistake and he needed to fix that mistake, what did he do?
Went and got Bill Parcells.
And it didn't matter what the cost was, and it didn't matter what the fact that they had to trade for him and all that other crap. It just didn't matter. Just get the guy in here that I know that is going to come to work here and immediately reestablish some credibility for my franchise.
Sort of like me with my garage doors this summer, where I had the one garage door that was functional, the other one wasn't working right. And the guy came in and he said, hey, I could fix the one garage door for cheap, but I don't know how long it's going to last, or I could give you 2 new beautiful garage doors for this cost. And I said, screw it. Give me the 2 new beautiful garage doors at the highest price because I don't want to be dealing with this because this freaking garage door has been driving me crazy. It's the same thing as a homeowner. You are confronted with these opportunities, and sometimes you can slap some duct tape on it, or sometimes you can go out there and go top dollar and say, I'm not dealing with this anymore. That's what the Jets need to do.
What you do is you bring in the business side, right? And you tell the business side.
Losing generations of fans, for God's sake.
You tell the business side, okay, here are our candidates. Here are the people we're going to look at. Here are the people we're going to talk about. What do you think in terms of selling this person, selling the combination of the quarterback and this person as the head coach? What kind of number do you think that we could create? So let's use an arbitrary number of $20 million per year for a head coach, which is a lot of money, but that's Bill Belichick and Sean Payton and Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin. These guys are like, they stand on the sideline. The fans see those guys.
I don't think Tomlin's making $20 million.
But he's making more than 10, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying to you is that when you see those guys on the sideline, as a fan, you feel good. You feel good that your team is in good hands. Just like when Parcells was at New England, when he was at the Giants, when he was at Dallas, when he was at the Jets. Immediately when you see him on the sideline, you're like, damn, we got a guy that knows what the hell's going on out there, and he's a tough guy, and our team's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So now you ask the business guys, can you sell that? The business guys will probably go crazy. They probably would tell you, you know what, we could probably increase our sales 15 to 20% if we hire this guy as a head coach. Now you got to go back and you got to look at how much you're going to pay him and how much you think you're going to, raise or sell after you hire him. And then you got to balance that number, and you got to think about overall credibility and having that guy standing on your sideline, whoever that guy is.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.